I was telling people that I am not a morning person, so I'm trying to function. But it's getting later, so it's 10 o'clock, so I'm doing better now. I'm waking up.
I had no idea we were getting right back into this. I thought there would be more music, and so I was back there talking, and I wouldn't even mention the fact I was eating one of the most delicious chocolate chip cookies I've ever eaten in my life. Man, that was good. Wow. That was life-changing.
He's a health food fanatic.
Woo! All right. Well, let's open up to session, I guess it'd be 3,
yes.
Right? Session 3. And
Gonna swallow?
yeah. Oh, man, that was so good. All right. Oh, I love chocolate chip cookies for breakfast, don't you? That's so good. All right. So we're going to basically take that idea of body, soul, and spirit, and we're going to hit on those. But like I said, the scripture said spirit, soul, body. So we talked about the spirit and that spiritual connection. That's a form of communication, is when you have that spiritual connection. When you're talking about Jesus and talking about what God's doing in your life, talk about your thoughts about the Bible or about a message from Sunday, or sharing your spiritual desires about your kids, or praying together, or reading the Bible together. All of that is going to be a spiritual connection. The second thing, though, is not just the spiritual connection, but then there's the social element. So there's the spiritual element, the social element. The last session is the sexual element, and so we're going to talk about that. But this one is on the social element, which corresponds with the soul. And so your emotions, your thinking processes, your will. In 1 Peter 3:7, it's in your handout, I believe it's in your booklet. Yeah, look at the top of your session there. It says communication involves the social element, the soul. 1 Peter 3:7, it says, is a great definition of communication. Dwell with them, talking about your spouse, according to knowledge. Dwell with them. And that word dwell, we would say hang together, right? It means hang out, literally. It means to be together, to hang out, to live together. And so, you know, the idea there is that you get to know your spouse better every day by just hanging together, just being together. Ephesians 5:28 and 29, look at that. That's also in your booklet. It says, so ought men to love their wives as their own bodies. He that loves his wife loves himself. For no man ever yet hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it, even as the Lord the church. And that word cherish there, when he says cherish your wife, it carries the idea, if you look it up, of delighting in each other's company and holding each other dear. There's one more there. Look at Song of Solomon 5:16. This is the bride speaking of her bridegroom. And it says, his mouth is most sweet. Isn't that precious? My wife always says, you have a sweet mouth, honey.
Especially after his cookie.
Yeah, especially after my chocolate chip cookie. And it says, yea, he is altogether lovely. But then look at this. This is my beloved, right? He's my lover, but he is my, what's the last word there? A little bit louder, what? Friend. He's my friend. So, friendship, now please get this, so important. Friendship can reach its zenith in marriage because the other loves of the relationship enhance that, and the bond is closer and the setting is more secure. But it's by no means a sure thing. Just because you exchange rings and vows does not mean that that friendship is going to be there in that marriage relationship. In fact, what we found through the years, just talking to couples, counseling couples, is that the friendship element is absent from most marriages. And that's why so many marriages end up on life support, is because you kind of like get to the point in marriage where you exist together. You share the same address, maybe share the same bed, maybe you even have some occasional romantic moments, have some happy moments, maybe you do some vacations. But there isn't that daily joy, that daily satisfaction that comes from being best friends. So how do you do that, right? How do you stay best friends? Because when you date, I guarantee you were probably best friends when you were dating. You spent more time on the phone with each other than anybody else, and you probably talked to each other more than anybody else you talked to. And when you dated, you did things together, you looked for fun things to do together, and you shared your interests together. And so, when you dated, you were best friends. So how do you keep that? How do you maintain that after 36 years of marriage? She's still my best friend. And there's nobody I'd rather be with than Denise. And I mean that with all my heart. I'm not just up here saying that. I can feel good about saying that because she knows it's true. Knows I'm not just up here schmoozing you guys, all right? She truly is my best friend. And there's nobody I'd rather be with and hang with than her. So how do you keep that? How do you do that? Well, in your booklet, I want you to get this statement, okay? It says, how do married couples stay best friends? And then it says you absolutely have to spend. Does anybody want to take a guess on the blank? You got it. Write that in. You have, was something funny said? You have to spend money together. Oh, wow. A lot of you are like, I want to be married to him. He has high trade-in value right now. All right. No, the blank is time, not money, all right? You have to spend time together. This has to happen. Listen, you have to spend time together in order to effectively communicate. I'm sorry, there's just no other way to do it. You're not going to have good communication if you're not spending ample time together. You say, well, but, and I get it, right? There's all kinds of that, but you have to figure it out. Because if you don't, here's what happens. And I'm going to let Denise give you an example of this in our marriage. If you don't figure it out, then you can both get very comfortable not being together. And that is a recipe for disaster. That's marital disaster in the making. When you start getting very comfortable not being together. Denise wanted to share something there.
My parents, my dad had his life, my mom had her life. They did not do things together. When Dan and I first got married, he was in a quartet at our church, and they first just sang at church, and then they started traveling on the weekends, Friday and Saturday, and they would let us go with them. We had our first child, Clint, and he loved quartet music, and so it was great. He loved it. They had a bus they traveled in. Well, about a year into that, it wasn't good for them to have the families go anymore. And they told us that from now on, it just had to be the guys and the families couldn't go. That didn't go over too well with me. I thought, here it's weekends, we have a little child who's 2, and now we're by ourselves, They were producing records in Nashville. Where were you doing it at? I don't even know. Didn't care. So wherever he was doing it, it did not impress me. And so and I remember this, and so does he. This one morning, he got up to leave, and I was not happy that he was leaving. And I was, I don't sleep good when he's not with me. I just don't do well, And I was crying, and he said, I even forget what he said. I'm going to miss you or something, And I said, I'm going to miss you too. And I said, but what hurts me is the day's going to come when I'm going to say, I don't miss you when you're gone. I don't want to create a life without you. I don't want to be like my parents, and my mom is completely content when my dad is gone. I said, I don't want to reach a place when you're gone that I'm okay, Of course, I cried and didn't know that I really had smote his heart, but you might want to say how you responded to that.
It really was a wake-up call for me, because I can picture right where we were standing at the door, and she said, with tears, she said, I'm going to miss you too, but she said, you know what, my biggest fear is there's going to come a time when I really don't care that you're leaving. It's really not going to be that big a deal to me that you're leaving. And I'm really not going to miss you. And she said, that's my fear, is that day is going to come. And in other words, she will build her own life without me there. And boy, that just smote me. And I went ahead and went on that trip, but I came back and resigned from the quartet, and I quit. I literally just quit. And I didn't do it for applause, but thank you. But no, it was the best decision I ever made. I don't know that we'd still be together today if I wouldn't have made that decision. And that was in that early days, like we said, when divorces happen. And it was those early days. So I came back and quit, and I'm really, really glad that I did that. And the thing is, I could have justified it easily because we were out doing Christian stuff. We were at churches. You know, we were ministering in churches, and I was writing songs, and it's easy to justify it, okay? That was no problem, right? I'm out serving the Lord, and you just need to deal with that, right? But you know, I just knew what I needed to do. So how are you going to forge that oneness that God talks about? Now, remember what we said last night? What did we say about marriage? How does God view marriage? Two become what? One. So how are you going to forge that oneness, though, in your everyday living? Well, how are you going to do it if you don't spend time together? So, like I said, you know, it's not going to happen automatically. You go on your honeymoon. How many of you remember your honeymoon? How many of you had a honeymoon? Did you have a honeymoon? We had a honeymoon for a week. You know, honeymoons are great, right? You're together every waking minute. You're doing fun things together. You're laughing together. You know, your whole life revolves around each other. And, you know, and it's awesome, right? Then you come back and real life sets in. And life gets busy. And your time gets swallowed up. And so then there's no time left for each other. And that's why many marriages are struggling to survive, is because married couples are not living and functioning as one flesh. You're not best friends. In that Forbes article I told you about on Forbes.com, they interviewed 1,000 divorced couples. And the number one factor that let couples know that their marriage was at risk, they said, was a lack of showing interest. A lack of showing interest in one another. So how does that even happen to two people who are madly in love and they enjoy each other so much that they actually make vows in front of other people and they say, I want to spend the rest of my life with you? How does that even happen, you know, to a couple like that, where now all of a sudden they don't have an interest in one another? And I think what happens is a lot of times, you know, we sweep things under the rug when we're dating, or we just kind of go along with things, but then we try to change. We think, well, I'll watch football with him, but this too will change after we get married, right? We're thinking. And so, you know, marriage comes, and then you try to change each other. And then there's the tension and the resentment and the frustration. And he's like, well, she's cramping my style, right? She never wants to do anything fun anymore. And she's thinking, he's such a complete bore. All he wants to do is watch SportsCenter and talk about fantasy football. And so he does his thing, she does her thing, and then some of their most enjoyable activities and happy moments happen without the other person there. Then the kids come, and then there's time restraints with family responsibilities, and then there's tension, and you only have so much time, so now you got choices have to be made between things I want to do and things we can do together. And so resentment can start to build as you lose interest in one another. Then you begin to avoid each other, which was on that list. And so the social element to your communication is crucial. It's that soul level of communicate, that emotional, that mind, that emotion, the laughing together, enjoying each other. That's that soulish element, right? You're connecting at that emotional level. You're sharing, you're enjoying life together. If married couples, it's in your handout there. I want you to get this. It says there that if married couples are to be companions and best friends, it says they must engage in regular social and recreational activities that they can both enjoy together. That's the blank, is together. In other words, those great moments of fun and relaxation, enjoyment, you want to associate those feelings with your spouse, not somebody else. So in the busyness of our culture, and how many of you would agree we have a busy culture, amen? Yeah. So in the busyness of our culture, and by the way, what is the most common thing that you say when you talk to somebody? You say, how you been doing? And how do you respond? Don't we wear that as a badge of honor in our culture? You know, we wear that as some kind of badge of honor. How you doing? Busy. Busy. Oh, it's been busy. And we wear that like it's this badge of honor, like that somehow makes me important because I'm busy. And we use that word all the time, right? And I've actually consciously tried not to do that anymore, is to respond to people when they ask me how I'm doing with busy, because I really don't want my life to just be summarized with the word busy. You know, I'd like to have more purpose in my life than just I'm busy. And so, how are you doing? I want to be able to say, well, you know, I'm doing good. You know, we've had a lot of great times with our family lately, and the family's been over, and Denise and I did this or that. I want to, you know, I don't want it to just be I'm busy. And yet we do live in a busy culture, and I get that. And so couples have to give their time. They got to be strategic, and you have to give your time in things that are going to bring you together, not fragment your relationship. And I know this is a sensitive issue because everybody has their things they like to do. But, and sometimes I've had couples tell me, you know, because here's the thing. I'm not saying that you have to spend every waking moment, all right, with your spouse. But let's face it, work usually separates us for 8+ hours every day anyway. And then you're sleeping, like I said, for 8 or 9 hours. So, you know, you are automatically going to not be communicating for probably 16, 17, 18 hours right there anyway. So in those few hours that are left, you know, you really want to pursue things and interests that bring you together, not that take you apart. And I know I've had couples tell me, well, we're both okay with it. He does his thing, I do my thing, I got my interest, he has his interest, I got my hobbies, he's got his hobbies, I got things I like to do, he's got things he likes to do, but we're both okay with that. But the reality is you're still going to drift. And when you drift, that's when bad things happen. 1 Peter 3:7 says we need to dwell with our spouse. We need to hang with them according to knowledge. So here's some practical suggestions. I think it's in your handout. Yeah, go ahead and get your pen ready. All right, write these down. These are just some practical things that you can kind of ponder and talk about.
It says spend down time together. Days off should be coordinated and spend time together. Find hobbies that you both enjoy. For me, my love language is time. You know, some might be gifts, some might be touch. I think Dan could spend maybe 1 hour a day with me, and as long as I'm touching him, life is good, you know. I'm not quite that way. I want some time with the touch, you know. But each of you do need to discuss what your spouse's love language is, you know. For me, like I said, it is time. So most of our things that we do, which I'm going to share some, involve the time. We're 5 minutes from the beach. So especially when I homeschooled, I just needed some alone time with not having my boys. So at lunchtime, we would ride out to the beach and just do like a mile walk, and we would be able to talk in privacy. When the kids got older, we put a pool in our backyard, had a fence. After I finished homeschooling the kids, Dan and I would just go to the back about 4 o'clock in the afternoon and just sit outside for an hour and just spend time together. Dan and I have never been full of money, so I didn't have that money thing, you know. So most of our stuff involved no money, you know, just spending time. Now that we are empty nesters, we love to go to thrift shops. We love to go to antique malls together. Do we buy a lot? No, but we're just spending time together. Dan and all of my boys are huge sports fans. Now, I did not grow up with sports, but guess what? I love it. We go crazy in our house when the Packers are playing. Every single, you know, until they lose. But we love it. We watch our footballs together, you know. Dan and I love to go to baseball stadiums together and try different baseball stadiums. So I try to do things that he likes, and I enjoy it, and he tries to do things that I like. He loves to jog. I don't. So what? We don't jog, we walk. We walk.
Yeah, so in your handout it says find interests that you can do together. I know how it is, right? When you're dating or before you dated, you had things you like to do. Like for instance, maybe you like to play tennis and she hates tennis. And you can't imagine your life not playing tennis.
Pickleball.
Well, that's a big one now, actually, pickleball. Couples do that together because it's very...
I'm not coordinated enough to do pickleball.
Well, you could do it, I think. We'll talk about that later. All right, but yeah, so, you know, but here's the deal. There's other fun ways to enjoy life other than what you're accustomed to. That's the point. If you Google hobbies, you're probably going to get 4 pages of hobbies. And so just pick out 3 or 4 that you both like. You know, in other words, it doesn't have to be she has her hobbies, I have my hobbies. No, you can find stuff you both like doing together. You both enjoy it.
You know, I would say this too. We were joking about the pickleball, but I'm not really coordinated and that kind of stuff. But because we had 3 boys, and my boys still love sports, and they're all adults, I would just go and hang out with them. You know, they're playing pickleball, they're playing frisbee golf. I'm the mom that just walks around. But I love that. It's better than trying to get hurt playing pickleball, you know? So we would still do it together, even though maybe I'm not playing it together.
Yeah, so the words are together there, by the
Yes.
way. So spend downtime together, find interests you can do together. Denise, do the third one there.
Yes, always do vacations, day trips, and fun getaways together. Unlike the guy who'd been married 50 years and took her to Tokyo for 25, you know? We have always tried to take our vacations together, you know? Now that we're empty nesters, we don't take our kids with us anymore. But back then, our kids would go with us on vacations, you know? But even if you're limited for just a day trip, you know, there's so many places in this Tampa area that you can just go to a park, go to a walk, just go together.
And then it says endeavor to do everyday mundane routine things together. So like if she's got to go to the grocery store, if I'm able to.
Go to Publix.
If I'm not working, if it's in the evening, I'll drive her, you know, to the grocery store. And, shopping, running errands, working in the yard, exercising, walking. You can learn to do these things together. And then the last one?
Serve together. Throughout Dan's ministry at our church, I was always in the services that he preached. I just wanted to always be there. You know, for me, and I know Cheryl's so much this way, I figured if Dan had some kind of physical ailment, if he passed out on the stage or something, I wanted to be there. You know, I wanted to be there for him. We did our small groups for many years before each service, and at that point in time, Dan didn't have a small group, so I taught the teen girls for like 20 years. But when we went to 3 services and we did not do our small groups before a service, I had to stop that because why? I wanted to be with him. So like now, when Dan took this new position and with Converge, one of the first questions we asked them was, hey, can I go with him? And their answer was, well, that would be, yes, you can. It would be a little weird, but you can. And you know what? I have found us doing this together that so many pastors' wives do want to go, but they've never been invited to go. So you know what? I'm changing that. And give us next year and we'll have more pastors' wives, you know. But we do that together.
Yes. And then it just, you know, I would just say this, couples, get creative. Hey, meet me here for lunch. Right? Can you meet me there for lunch? Hey, you get an hour break at 10 a.m. Bring me some coffee. We'll sit in the car and talk. You know, just kind of be creative with things. Be spontaneous. You know, go do something you didn't even plan on. Hey, you want to go do this? Want to go do that? We'll call a babysitter. We'll go out tonight. So be creative. Be spontaneous.
So many times with us, especially with homeschooling, I would be in hormones. You know how that goes. Both of them together. After we'd had supper, we'd tell the boys, okay, you're going to be in the side. We would just go to our car in the driveway, turn the air on, and just sit in the car for an hour. And I know
That's called escaping from your
I know that
kids.
sounds corny, but it just gave us some quiet time where I could just not have 3 boys in my ears all the time, you know?
And, you know, I want to talk about this just for a second. What are some potential pitfalls that are going to keep you from having that social element, that best friend thing? What are some pitfalls? And I would just be really practical here and say, in our day and age today, electronic devices are huge. So, like, I mean, it's just no fun when you're talking to someone, whether it's a friend or a spouse, and they're constantly looking at their phone. It's like, they're not engaged. They're there, but they're not really there. So I would just say, be aware of that. You know, we've been out to eat, and we'll see couples, and literally they're both on their phone the entire time they're eating. There's just no interaction. So electronic devices can sabotage the social element of your relationship. Social media, and I know we call it social media, and I'm talking about the social aspect of marriage. Social media can sabotage the social aspect of your marriage because that kind of becomes what you're all about instead of your spouse. And again, I'm not preaching against that. I think social media is fine in its place, but you just have to be careful about it. That's all.
I'll say this: when we travel, Dan wants me to turn my phone off a lot, and he says the reason being is because he says everybody and his brother has my number, and they do, and I don't mind that. But when he wants me to himself, he says, turn your phone off. I have my phone on. If the kids have an emergency, they can still get a hold of us. And I think that's very necessary because of the cell phone, you never truly can get away. So I would encourage that, especially if you're a young parent. You know what? If one of you have it on, as long as if you're not with your children, but even if your children are with you, turn it off for a while. Just put it away.
Life will go on. The world will still be spinning, even though your phone's off for a little while. All right. Sometimes it's another couple that can sabotage the social element of your marriage. In other words, there's always another couple with you when you have downtime. That's not good, right? Or a family member can sabotage it, or another person can sabotage it. Video games, right? It's like all these things can sabotage that. Last night we were doing the thing where Mike had us going from table to table. Wasn't that fun? And there was a couple that came to our table, and we said, "What are things that you like to do together?" And she answered, and I don't know if they're here today, but she said, "We like to play video games together." And the other couple at our table, the lady said, "Wow, you are a husband's dream." Oh, mercy. But again, that's one of those things that it's like if the husband's into it and the wife isn't, that's not good, because then he wants to do that every waking minute. He's got downtime and she's not involved. So it's like you're doing something that she can't really engage with you in. So you just have to pick out things you can do together. We talked about children, I think, already. I don't know that we need to hit that again, but, just how that she was talking about how children can become the basis of your marriage, and that's not good, right?
And I would say this, we're empty nesters, so you would think, oh, well, they're gone now. Women that have children that are gone, are they ever gone? No, your heart never forgets your child, even if they're in Africa, wherever they are, And I think almost for me, it's in a lot of ways, if my kids call me whatever time it is, and if they need me, I want to be there for whatever need they have. And Dan's like, Denise, they can figure this out without you, But I think for me, that is something that I still struggle with, I want to be my adult child's everything. I still have one single child. He called me Monday or Tuesday morning. He says, Mom, I almost called you at 1 o'clock because I was sick. And Dan's like, oh, brother, And
that was 1 o'clock in the morning, by the way.
And but as a mother's heart, yes, 1 o'clock in the morning. But as a mother, that is a hard thing for me, because you know what? I could focus all my attention on them, and really, I need to be focusing on us too, and that's hard. I think for all of us that are ladies, we can understand that.
That's good, yeah. So, and here's the whole thing, is that if you're not best friends and you've slipped away from that, you got to figure out ways to become best friends again. So you want to associate those laughing, happy moments and those times of relaxation and enjoyment with your spouse. So you're just going to have to figure that out, figure out ways to do that. Hopefully this will lead to some good discussion. We're going to do the inventory here in a second, but believe it or not, like I said, there are ways to enjoy life other than the ways that you have always been accustomed to. There's thousands of possibilities. There's thousands of hobbies. There's thousands of different sports and activities and hobbies and things to do. So just find things that you mutually enjoy. And in your handout, in your booklet, I want you to look at that. There's 2 more blanks. And it says, because there's only so many hours in the day and week, couples have to make a choice. And that is, number 1, they can pursue interests that they can share, resulting in growing closer together. So that's a choice of the will, right, of the soul. You can pursue interests that you both enjoy, resulting in growing closer together, or you can pursue interests that you do not share, resulting in growing apart. So, ask yourself this: are my spouse and I best friends? Are we true companions? Is there anyone I'd rather be with than my spouse? When I have time off work, what's my first thought? Right? When I have time off work, what's my first thought? Are our activities and our interests, are they taking us in the same direction? You know, there's a verse that says, except two be agreed, how can they walk together except they be agreed? How can two walk together except they be agreed? And I think there's a lot of truth in that verse. Because it's saying, you know what? If you got two people, how can they be agreed? How can they be friends? How can they be companions if they're going opposite directions? How can two be agreed? It says unless they're walking in the same direction, unless they're agreed. And so the inventory that I want to give you right now, if we could go ahead and hand that out, whoever's got the inventories, if we could get that out just as quickly as possible to each table, I would really appreciate it. And we'll go through this together. Husband and wife both need one. This is obviously the reason for doing this is to see what each of you puts on each of these statements. This one's a little longer than the other ones, so it's still one page, but we'll go through it together. So hand them out at each table, if you would, as quickly as possible.
You know, I was thinking, too, you were sitting at our table last night, and one of the questions was, you know, what drew them together. They said they have fun together. They laugh. She laughs at you. And
He makes me laugh.
yeah, and I think that's good. You know, Dan and I love to laugh, you know? Mm-hmm. Laughing is good. And if you kind of make a mental note, am I laughing with my spouse?
Yep, that's good.
Because it brings you joy when you laugh, you know?
It does. I like to laugh.
And I like to laugh when he's having a calamity, so that's good,
When I fall down, she loves to laugh at me, let me tell you.
But I don't like it when he laughs at me.
All right, number one, look at this. I want to go through this with you because this one really is going to delve a little deeper, all right? So this is all dealing with the social element that we talked about. You're going to put a 1, 2, 3, or 4. You know the routine now, okay? So if you really agree with it, put a 1. And then on down from there. All right, number one there. It seems that we don't have enough time to spend together. So if you agree with that, put a 1. You say, well, I kind of agree with it. Put a 2. All right? If you say, no, we have plenty of time to spend together, then you can put a 3 or 4, okay? All right, next one. My spouse shows a healthy interest in me on a regular basis. Don't let your spouse see what you're putting. Please make sure you're hiding that from them. I don't want them to see what you're writing. That's cheating. So make sure you're not looking at your spouse. All right, next one. My greatest times of relaxation and enjoyment are spent with my spouse. So put a 1 if you agree with that, a 1 or 2 if you disagree, a 3 or a 4, depending on your level of disagreement or agreement. All right, next one. We have hobbies that we do regularly together. Next one says, even when we are together, my spouse is often distracted. Be honest. The only right answer is an honest answer. There's no wrong answers on here, other than if you're dishonest, all right? Next one. There's another friend or family member that my spouse spends too much time with and robs us of time together. Do you agree with that statement? Yes or no? All right, next one. We pursue interests that bring us together, not take us apart. The next one says, I tend to be a workaholic. So this is self-awareness here, I hope, right? We need to be self-aware. I tend to be a workaholic and not take enough downtime with my spouse. And the next one says, my spouse tends to be a workaholic. So now you get to answer and tell them what you really think, right? My spouse tends to be a workaholic and doesn't take enough downtime with me. The next one says, we set aside time to have fun together and be companions. And then the last one says, we have date nights, do fun things together. There's the idea there. It doesn't have to necessarily be at night, but we do fun things together on a regular basis. Okay, isn't that good? So fold that up, just put it in your booklet. Don't show that to each other yet. I want you to, as homework, to tonight or tomorrow, show each other your answers, talk through them, communicate, allow this to take you deeper into conversation about life and about your marriage and about how you really feel. You have a right to have feelings. There's no right or wrong. If your spouse gets mad at you over any answer you put, that's a problem. Are y'all going to quote me on that? Listen, if they have a problem with anything you put on there, then that's a problem. Because you have a right to have feelings. You have a right to have opinions. You have a right to be able to call something out for what it is. So, like, if you're feeling fearful to put what you really want to put on here, that's a problem. And that's something that you need to talk through. And that's something that maybe you need to seek some counseling on. Because if you're afraid to tell your spouse how you really feel, what basis is that for a good marriage, right? So, you have to be able to be honest with your spouse. So if you think that they tend to be a workaholic, then you ought to be able to put that and share that with them. And it's something that you may never share otherwise. So that's why I do these, because hopefully it'll kind of bring some things out of the closet that need to be talked about, that need to be discussed, so that you can have a great marriage for years and years and years, and just grow closer together and have your marriage get sweeter as the days go by, and not drift apart, right?